All right. Could you please give us your full name as is recorded on your birth certificate, sir?
Tilson E. Drennen Jr.
Okay. Do you currently or have you ever had a nickname?
I go by Gene.
Gene?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Would you have been known by Gene mostly during your military time?
Pretty much.
Okay. All right. Did you, you joined the Air Force, correct?
I joined the Air Force, yeah.
Okay. Did you have any family members that were involved in the military?
My dad was he spent 10 years in the Army and 10 years in the Air Force.
Okay. All right. Do you think that did that make a lot of your decisions for you, do you think? Did it persuade you to join the military?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. All right. Was your father's experience always a good experience for the most part?
Yeah. The time he retired, I was 6 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and he really didn't say good or bad, but, he did, with him being in both branches of the service, he kind of geared me towards going into the Air Force, because the Air Force, I guess, is a better way of life. You don't see too much action in the Air Force, and well, you do, but to me, I have a lot of friends that are in Army, Navy, Air Force, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and you always get back, man, I wish I would have joined in the Air Force, because the Air Force always treats you better, the accommodations are always better and stuff, so.
Let me ask you a question. You said your father kind of influenced you
Mm-hmm.
in some ways. Maybe could you talk a little bit more about that? And when you say influence, did he suggest it to you, or were you just sort of proud of your father?
I was proud of my father for being in the military, and all through pretty much high school, it's like, what am I going to do? Start thinking about what am I going to do with myself after I graduate high school? If I'm going to go to college, or if I'm going to join the military, and I just kind of lean towards the military. It's like, well, while I'm in the military, they do have the educational benefits and stuff, and if I want to pursue the education while I'm in there, I can do that. So.
Okay. You said that you were born in Virginia, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What brought you to West Virginia?
My family's originally from West Virginia. With my dad being in the military, when he retired, we moved back here to Beckley.
I see. Okay, so you came back here at a very young age.
I was 6 years old when I come back.
Okay.
So was your father originally from the Beckley area?
He's from Fayette County, but for some reason they moved here to Beckley.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What did your father do for a living, other than the military? Did he have any other civilian employment?
When he got out of the military, he went for worked for this mining machinery company. He worked there for probably about another 20 years or so, and retired from it. So.
Okay.
Is your dad still with us?
No, he passed away back in '98.
No, sorry to hear it.
So you attended the majority of your schooling here in West Virginia?
Yes.
Okay. Where did you attend school at?
I went through Cranberry Elementary, which is out Prosperity, and after my fourth year out there, they opened up a new school out Stanford, which is where I lived at. They opened that up, and I spent 5th and 6th grade there, and then I went to Stratton Junior High, and then I graduated from Woodrow Wilson High School.
I used to live in Beckley too.
Okay. Is there anything about your childhood that you'd like to describe? I mean, any specific events here, or some of your pastimes, or anything like that?
It's just a normal childhood, I guess you would say.
Uh-huh. Okay. All right.
Except for the first 6 years, with me moving around, because I think we were like in 3 different areas, 3 different stations.
What do you remember about that?
I don't remember a whole lot because I was so young.
Where were you? Do you know?
We were in Savannah, Georgia, Fort Eustis, where I was born at, Fort Eustis, and there at Newport News. And that was for probably about a year or 2. And then we moved to, he was stationed in Pennsylvania, and then we ended up in Savannah, Georgia, and he retired from there.
Okay. Well, during your your time in the military, did you do a lot of moving around too?
When I first went in, of course, we went through basic training and tech school, which is, both of those were in Texas for me, Lackland Air Force Base and then Shepherd Air Force Base. And then I got stationed at Langley Air Force Base in Virginia, my old stomping grounds.
Uh-huh.
I was there for 5.5 years. Then I got orders to go to Turkey. This is right during the Desert Storm, just shortly after that kicked off. Spent almost 2 years there. And then I came out, went back to Shepherd Air Force Base for another 5 years, almost 5.5 years there. And that, my dad had gotten sick, so and then he ended up passing away, and I made the decision to get out and come back home to go into the Air National Guard here in Charleston. So
When were you in Charleston?
I was there from '98 to 2007. I finished out my 20-year. Well, I had 22 years by the time I retired.
Okay. Is there any specific instances during your deployment to Turkey that you'd like to discuss?
It was a great place to be. Before I went over there, other people was like, "Man, you're not gonna like it over there. You're not gonna like it over there." But I loved it over there. I mean, everything was, dirt cheap. Food, shopping, whatever you wanted to do was dirt cheap. It was a good central location to go whenever you had the time off or whatever to go anywhere in Europe or whatever. I felt really safe over in Turkey, more so than what I did here in the States. Because everywhere you were, they have a lot of Turkish police. The Turkish police were constantly walking around everywhere. So, as far as terrorism and stuff goes, I wasn't afraid of that. It was an overall really good experience being in Turkey.
Okay. Did you work with any foreign nationals?
Yeah, we had Turkish nationals that worked on the base with us. One of our secretaries, I worked in the clinic. She was Turkish national. She was also from Australia, so it's kind of neat to have a Turkish national employee there who had an Australian accent. So, and from talking with her and everything, there's a lot of people over there that go back and forth either there to Australia or to Germany. She says most people find it easier and more convenient for them to live outside of Turkey, the Turkish nationals, because evidently the pay and stuff there isn't that great for like jobs and stuff, because it is considered like a third world country.
What's the weather like? Is it about the same as it is here?
The weather is about the same as it is here. The day I arrived in Turkey, there was like 1.5 feet of snow on the ground, so it was 4 seasons just like here.
Did you find that did a lot of people speak English?
For the most part. If not, they offer Turkish classes and stuff that you could take to basically get yourself around if need be on the base there. So,
Okay.
but for the most part, a lot of the Turkish nationals spoke English or could comprehend what you were trying to say.
Okay. I know you mentioned that during some of your downtime you'd go visit Europe and things. Did you mention that?
Yes.
Yes. Is there anything about those, when you're provided with downtime, possibly in Turkey or when you went to Europe, can you describe any of those instances?
In the almost 18 months that I was there, we did what they call TDYs, where I'd go to different conferences and stuff. And a lot of them were like in Germany and England and stuff like that. And, I spent probably 6 to 8 months of my time outside of Turkey going to these conferences and stuff. So.
Okay. But as far as downtime, you really didn't get a whole lot?
Yeah, I work Monday through Friday.
I see.
Like I said, Air Force treats you the best. It's like having a Monday through Friday job, weekends and holidays off. And when you're over there in Turkey, you also observe the Turkish holidays. And a couple of their Turkish holidays are week long. So that gave you a couple extra weeks to go do whatever, so,
I see.
yeah.
Can you describe some of your job duties?
One of my main jobs that I did over in Turkey was I did handle the air evacuation, which, you know, whenever we had patients who needed to be evacuated to like Germany or some of the bigger medical facilities that may need surgery or whatever, you know, I was responsible for getting those patients in and out of the country, going to these other facilities.
Okay, so you were involved in the medical field.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Other than your deployment to Turkey, were you involved in that same field?
I've been in the medical field for the last 25 years.
Okay.
Yeah, that's including time here at the VA as well.
All right. And during the first Iraq War, did you guys have a lot of incoming injuries and things from that conflict?
Not really, not in that part of Turkey. They made, you know, because I was in a little small town north of Turkey, Ankara, which is the capital of Turkey. The bigger base was at Incirlik, which is in the southern part of Turkey, which borders Iraq. And they probably saw a lot more stuff coming through there than what we did.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. What was your opinion of your officers?
I worked with a bunch of great people. I've never had any problems with anybody that I worked with in the military. You know, it's so well structured and everything that,
Mm-hmm.
of course, you know, you've got some of the officers out there who think, you know, they've got the education, they're better than others, but you know, for the most part, everyone got along well.
Great. I'll jump back a little bit. How did you feel about your basic training?
Now that I look upon it, it was a joke. You know, because I work with Army people, I work with Marines and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they talk about how well they're, you know, how strenuous and long their basic training stuff was, and ours was only like 6 weeks, and you know, we had to run 1.5 miles a day, and that was it. You know, and you listen to the guys I work with talking about, you know, they go on 5-mile hikes with their rucksacks on their back and stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
it was a joke.
So you feel you got out pretty easy?
Yeah.
With that? Okay. All right.
I mean, it was enough to get you in shape and stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
it's nothing compared to the other branches of services.
Okay. During your time overseas, did you witness any differences in how they treated women?
The Turkish nationals, yeah, the women were treated differently. You know, like our women that were in the military with us or whatever couldn't go downtown, like a pair of shorts or whatever. You know, they had to be fully dressed and you know, different things like that. You know, the women over there always walked behind the men, and it was different.
So their way of life even influenced the American women who were there serving. They had to abide by certain
Yes.
ways
Yeah.
of their structure. I see. Okay. Do you have any experiences with any other West Virginians during your time in the military?
As a matter of fact, when I was over in Turkey, I ran into like 3 people that I graduated from high school with. Didn't even know they had went into the military or anything, you know, because by the time I'd gone over there, I'd already been in the military for 5.5 years.
Uh-huh.
And one guy was, I think he was a year ahead of me, and another guy was 2 years ahead of me, and girl that I ran into, she was she graduated the same year I did.
I see.
So-
Okay. Were they in the same branch of the
Yeah,
military?
yeah, we were all in the Air Force.
That's interesting
Yeah.
that you'd run into those people.
Yeah, it brings a new meaning to it's a small world.
I mean, what situation? How did you run into those folks? Just
we just we got what they call a base exchange, which is basically a department store type thing on the bases. And I just happened to be walking in there and saw this guy. It's like, called him by his name, and he turned around and it's like, oh my God, what are you doing here?
How many people were were at your base from the United States?
Uh, That one right there was probably about 1,500 of us. I mean, we were the small base that was there. Of course, where I was at too, we had all the different embassies there as well. You know, the American embassy and all the. I think there was probably about 27 different embassy countries there that had embassies in Ankara there. So, and General Dynamics was also there in Ankara too, which housed a bunch of Americans, you know, building the plane engines and stuff out there.
Okay.
Did you talk about basic training and how that was for him?
A little bit, yeah, yeah.
I told him it was pretty much a joke for the Air Force. It's nothing
6
like,
weeks, right?
yeah, it's 6 weeks, and you know, you got up and you exercised, you ran a little bit, and that was pretty much it. You know, compared to the Marines and the Army and stuff, you know, it was a joke.
Okay. How did the people around you, like your family and friends, I mean, how did they perceive your time in the military? Were they, you know, happy about it, or was there ever a large amount of concern, probably specifically during your time? I know you mentioned that during your time going to Turkey.
I think the only time they had a concern was when I did go to Turkey, and they were a little bit worried about me. They didn't know what was going to be going on over there and what I'd be doing or anything like that. But for the most part, they were proud that I had joined the military.
Mm-hmm. And you said in '98 you came back to. You're saying the.
In May of '98, I got a call from the Red Cross telling me I had to get home because of my dad, and apparently he had problems with diabetes, and no one really knew. I don't even think he knew. And he took him in the hospital, and his blood sugar was like 1,400 and something, and pretty much put him in a coma. And they were pumping him full of insulin, trying to get his sugar down and everything. During this process, he suffered a massive heart attack. And I got home on Thursday, and I think he died on Saturday. And then I made the decision, because my mom wasn't in the best of health either. So I made the decision when I got back to Shepherd that I was going to put in my package and get out what they call Palace Chase, which whatever time I had left on active duty, I would do double in the Guard. And but I knew I was going to just do that. I was going to go and finish my time out. I said, well, you know, I need to come home and spend time home with mom before something happens to her. And also help take care of my grandfather, which my dad was helping take care of. And but let me say, I put in my package in June, and I got to separate on September 30th. And come home, and about 2 weeks later, my grandfather had died.
Wow.
And then my mom died the following March.
That was really a rough patch.
Yeah.
So you got this message, and then you quickly as you could got yourself home. But by the time you got here, your father, he never came out of his coma?
He came out of his coma long enough to know that I was there. And when he did, he probably, you know, he couldn't talk or anything, but I was sitting there telling him, you know, the normal stuff, hey, I love you, you know, if you know, I'm here and whatnot. And he started crying, and probably about within 15, 20 minutes he died. That was a rough year.
That was a rough year, but you were lucky you got to say goodbye, really.
Yep.
Wow. So was it difficult to line up things with the Air National Guard in West Virginia? I mean,
no. I mean, the transition was smooth as can be. I mean, I separated on September 3rd, and on the 1st of October, September 30th, and the 1st of October, I was in the Guard. You know, they weren't, I mean, the people down there were a great bunch of people. You know, they got me in and got me going.
did you work with anybody in particular down there?
I worked in the clinic down there in the Guard unit.
I mean, was there somebody that helped you get in that fast, or?
One of the recruiters down there, Artie Chestnut, I think he's retired now. I think he did retire after I did. He helped me through the whole process when I was on active duty and everything, about telling me what I needed to submit, what paperwork I needed to put in and stuff like that. And you know, I was home probably about September 15th and on terminal leave for a couple of weeks, and then went down there on the 1st and raised my right hand again and swore in again. Went to work.
And what work were you doing?
Down there I was with the medical administration, basically, and then probably within about 2 years, I cross-trained to become a training manager in the clinic down there. So
I guess I don't know about the clinic. What do they do down there?
pretty much they just handle physicals for the most part, you know, of all the people that are there on the base and stuff. They don't do any treating or anything like that. They just do physicals, and of course, you know, when they do get deployed or whatever, you know, that's when they do their medical treating and stuff like that.
I see. Well, moving forward, how did your life play out here from that point on?
Well, probably on September 30th, I come over here and fill out an application here at the VA.
Okay.
And was hired October 25th or 26th. So I was like without a job for like 3 weeks. I was one of the lucky few because, you know, the people I work with up there, you know, they spent 6 months trying to get on here and couldn't get on here, and I got on within a matter of weeks.
To what do you attribute that?
I don't know, just luck of the draw, I guess. You know, just happened to be here at the right time when they had a job opening.
Great.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to describe about your job here? I mean, how it's went since then?
Well, I started out working in the file room here. I worked in there for about 9 months. Then I went up to become like the clinic manager or whatever for radiology and the dental clinic up there. Basically, secretarial type stuff and scheduling. And spent almost about 7 years up there. And then back in 2007, I applied for a job to work in prosthetics. And got that job and been working there ever since. And that's been a good job.
And what led you to want to go in that direction?
Promotion-wise.
Okay, more money?
More money.
Okay.
Plus, I thought it would be neat to be working with the prosthetics department, you know, working with all the, you know, people with amputations and stuff like that, you know.
So, talk to us about that. What was it? What you expected it to be?
And more.
Okay. What did you expect, and what more was it?
I expected, you know, just to come up there and just be, you know, what they call a purchasing agent. It'd just be up there buying, but, you know, you start to get to know the people and stuff, and to hear their stories about what happened, you know, whether, you know, how their leg got amputated, or, you know, a lot of them some days it's kind of hard to make it through the day just listening to the stories and dealing with the patients, because it is tough. But for the most part, it's rewarding to know that you're helping these guys and doing a good thing for them by, you know, buying an artificial leg or whatever they may need.
And any stories, without naming anybody, that stick out in your mind that moved you in particular?
There's everybody up there has their story, for the most part. You know, I'd say for the most part, the ones that do stick out are the ones that are the amputees. I mean, we help other people besides the amputees and stuff like that. You know, like we do wheelchairs and, you know, crutches and stuff like that. And but for the most part, all the amputees, you know, it's heartbreaking. You know, to know what these guys went through, and you know, a lot of them, you know, they lose their limbs because of diabetes, or you know, some people have, you know, their injuries occurred while they were on active duty. It's just there's so many that stick out.
Is there a different feeling for you from people? I mean, is it all the same, or is it different if somebody lost a limb in active duty in battle? Is that?
I don't differentiate between the two, you know, whether it's because of their illnesses or whatever, or you know, they've served their time. You know, they're, you know, whether it's because, you know, they're over there and got injured, or, you know, they lost their leg because of, you know, their diabetes is out of control or whatever. You know, I treat them all the same. You know, they're veterans just like I am.
Sure.
Okay. Did you ever make use of any of the GI Bill?
That's a story. I did do the GI Bill when I went in. You know, paid my $1,200. You know, $100 a month for the first year that I was in, and never really had to use it while I was in. And when I got off active duty and went into the Guard, I always knew I had 10 years to use the money once I got out. Well, they never did tell me that it was when I got off active duty. So when I got out of the Guard, where I had almost 9 years and so many months in, I thought, well, I need to go back to school and take a couple more classes so I can finish my degree. Well, come find out, I only had 3 months left to use the GI Bill.
Oh.
So it wasn't explained correctly to me when I got off active duty that your time starts now. Not when you get out of the Guard or whatever, it's when you get off active duty. So I actually lost out on using the GI Bill. Because when I was in the Guard, I took classes too, and they paid for 100% of your tuition and fees and stuff, so there was no need for me to use the GI Bill while I was in the Guard.
Oh.
So,
What were you studying?
healthcare management.
Where were you taking courses through?
A lot of online courses and stuff like that, and the Guard, you know, I collect a lot of tests and stuff through the Guard and stuff, and just, you know, I took classes, you know, at my different bases and stuff at different universities and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Have you yourself made use of any of the VA services?
I'm seen here as a patient. You know, I have a primary care doctor here. I've used the emergency room a couple times. Other than that, that's pretty much it.
Has it been a pretty good experience? Or?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
You sort of come full circle in a way. Do you feel that?
Yeah,
And so you've served, and now you're serving.
yeah.
True. That's got to feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how you think about it in your mind?
Oh yeah. I'm giving back what was given to me.
Okay. Thinking back on it all, is there anything you would do differently concerning your military service?
Probably would have went ahead and got my education first. And went to the officer side of the house. Because nowadays, I mean, it just seems like whatever you need, or whatever you're trying for, there's always education needed nowadays. It used to be the military experience was great, but now they don't even, they still look at it, but, you know, it's best if you have a degree or something too. So.
Okay. Would you have stayed in longer, or do you think you made the right decision at that point to?
Well, if I was on active duty, I would have had to retire at 20 years unless you were a certain rank. And as far as the Guard goes, sometimes I could kick myself for going ahead and retiring because I could have stayed till I was age 60. But I thought, no, I want to just have the one job and just worry about the one job. So, but
What benefit to you do you think there would have been if you would have stayed?
Last time I'd have to worry about getting my retirement check. Because we can't draw that until we're 60 anyway, when you retire out of the Guard. You know, and like active duty, when you retire off active duty, you start drawing your retirement, but you know, they make us wait till we're 60. That, I mean, yeah, it's a benefit, you know, but I think the benefit of me staying in, maybe be able to do different jobs, more jobs, because I entertain the idea of doing a couple other jobs while I was in the Guard. But stuck with the ones I had.
I have a question to ask you. You know, we've had different wars, World War II, Vietnam, Korea, the conflict coming up, the new modern ones, which you were more familiar with. How do you relate to the conflicts? I mean, when you think about them in your mind, how do you think about them, and how do you think that the society at large relates to them and to the modern vet? You think things have changed?
Technology and everything has changed, but to me, it's a cycle. You know, to me, you know, from just going back in time, you know, every so often there's got to be some conflict going on. And I'm sure, you know, 10, 15 years down the road, there's going to be another one going on. But as far as, you know, everything, the way they handle things are different. Probably each time there's been a conflict or whatever. But you know, it's just an ongoing thing.
Well, how do you think society relates to it? Yes, a number of people have told me, as I've been out and about, that when people that are somewhat younger, say in their 30s, 40s, whatever, even 50s, when they think of veterans, they think of World War II veterans.
Yeah.
They don't really think of the younger people as veterans. Do you think
don't.
that's sort of true?
Yeah.
And what do you think about that? Is it just a matter, what's that about?
It's a matter of time. You know, the older when we get, they will look at us as being veterans, but right now, no. I mean, I'm sure, yes, in their minds, yes, they are a veteran, but, you know, I don't know, I guess it's an age thing.
Did you, you know, for the larger society, it seemed like 9/11 was a huge thing for everybody. Everybody remembers it. Where were you when 9/11 happened?
I was in this building. I was down in our information IRM department downstairs taking a class. I was on the computer taking a class when they had the TV on downstairs or whatever, and it came across. So I was here at this facility working.
What was that like?
It was like, oh no, what's going on? You know, everyone was just like, what's going on? You know, what's going on? What's happening? You know, it was just a total shock. I guess back then, just like, that couldn't happen here in the U.S. You know, why did we let something happen like this? But you never know when something's going to happen.
Okay. Is there any advice you'd give to individuals that are currently in the military or thinking about joining the military? I know you mentioned that you definitely were set on the Air Force. I mean, would you persuade people to join the Air Force?
Being biased, yes. I would persuade people into joining the Air Force. Not down in any of the other Air Force, but you know, as far as the education and stuff that you get from the Air Force, it's more beneficial to you, that I think, than as far as like when you do get out of the military. They spend the Air Force and the Navy spend the most money on their education for their troops, and
So you think once you're back in civilian life,
yeah,
it benefits you more?
The Air Force is to me was an easier transition of coming back into the civilian world, because like I said earlier, you know, it's a Monday through Friday job, you know, weekends and holidays off. It was just like being a civilian, except you wore a uniform. And I loved wearing the uniform. I mean, that was, you know, it's like one decision you didn't have to make every morning of what you're going to wear.
That's good.
Okay. When you first entered into the military, were you always headed in the medical field, or did you just end up that?
Well, I was given a lot of choices to go into, but for some reason the medical healthcare management stuck out to me the most for some reason. I don't know why. And I was lucky enough that that's what I got, because I went in what they call open general, and it's like you basically get whatever is thrown at you. And this is one of the jobs at the time when I applied for it was not open, which was in June of 85. I didn't go in until January of 86. And by the time January rolled around or whatever, there was openings and stuff, and I actually got what I wanted. So.
Tell us a little bit about your father. What kind of a man was he?
He was very quiet. I'm more outspoken than he is. I guess if there was any problems or whatever, he kept them to himself. Very gentle man, loving, caring. He was an all-around good guy. Just very quiet.
Do you relate to yourself as being a West Virginian? Do you think how do you feel about West Virginia? And
Well, you always hear these jokes about people joking about being from West Virginia, and whenever they start doing that, I say, I'm not from here. I'm from Newport News, Virginia.
the escape hatch.
The escape hatch, yeah.
Well, but you say that, but do you have any? Your dad was a West Virginian, right?
Right.
So what do you feel when people say stuff like that? Does it bother you? You just shrug it off.
I just shrug it off.
And how do you do that?
I mean, I just go about, I may come back with some witty comment to them or whatever, and I'm just like, yeah, you're just jealous because you're not from here or something like that. I believe it or not, I had this one girl that I was stationed with when I was at Langley. She thought Virginia was the whole shebang. She didn't know there was another state called West Virginia. Believe it or not.
Did you find any other? Well, you probably learned about some things about some other states as you got around. Were there any surprises for you about other states?
For most part, you heard about West Virginia or Kentucky or Ohio, just in this area. But anybody else, you never really did hear that bad mouthing or whatever.
Uh-huh.
It was just always West Virginia jokes and stuff.
You did hear a lot of West Virginia
Oh yeah,
jokes.
it's like, oh my God, both your legs are the same length, that type of thing.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Did that go on pretty much throughout your career?
Yeah, and it had its moments, But after a while, it stopped, and everybody went on about their business, and you never heard anything else unless somebody new came into the picture or whatever, and they were trying to be a smarty.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, your three friends that you bumped into Turkey, that graduated from Woodrow Wilson, did they?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and do you keep in touch with them? Are they still around?
There's one of them I keep in touch with. The other two, I don't even know where they're at. Facebook is a wonderful thing. That's how I found out where he was at. Because people that's made an impact on my life. There's a lot of my military friends and stuff that I'm still in contact with through like Facebook and stuff like that I've looked up. There's probably about 10 of my friends from Turkey that I keep in real good contact with.
If there was one person that you could name, maybe other than your father, who influenced you to go into the military, was there any individual or individuals who were mentored you or led you or helped you in some extraordinary way?
The one person that really sticks out is my first commander. Well, no, he wasn't my first commander. He was probably my second commander. He was a full bird colonel, and he the day that he got there, he came around and was walking around, just introducing himself and stuff. And he'd come into the different departments, and he just knew everybody. I'm like, that really amazed me. I mean, he'd walk in, it's like, oh, hi, you must be Gene. I'm Colonel so-and-so, and and I'm your new commander and stuff. And he really looked out for his people, and that man was a big influence on me. Because first 4 to 8 years, you're kind of in that transition of, should I stay, should I go? And he really made me turn my mind around to staying in the military.
And what was his name?
Colonel Pauly Castro.
Did you actually discuss your career with him, or was it just your interaction with him?
We may have discussed, my career and, just at leisure or whatever. I mean, he was a very, very people person. I mean, I bowled. He was on my bowling league, and we bowled together and different things. And he, I mean,
Who was a better bowler?
he probably was at the time because he had a little bit more experience than I did.
Any really funny or humorous things that you recall from your time in the military? Just something that just seemed totally random and hilarious?
Not that I can think of offhand.
Okay, just wondering.
I mean, I'm sure there's funny things that I can think about, but nothing's popping in there right now.
Okay, that's fine.
Well, when you were away, I mean, did you visit home at West Virginia a good bit?
Well, when I was stationed in Langley, 4.5 hours from home, so if we had a long weekend or whatever, I'd drive up home, come visit the family and stuff. So yeah, I spent a good time, especially the first 5.5 years. Of course, when you're over in Turkey, you're not going to come home. I came home one time when I was in Turkey. Your mid-tour, they give you what they call environmental morale leave. They give you 30 days, and you get to come home. Now that was an experience coming home because our planes kept breaking down and everything.
Well, tell us about it. Tell us what happened.
We started out, there was I think it was a C-141 that was supposed to come and pick us up. And no, it was TWA. They had contracted the TWA when they were up and running at the time. It was one of those L-10-111s. We got loaded, took off, and the plane was just shaking the whole time. I'm like, what in the world's going on? And then the captain comes on and says, we're having a little bit of problems with our hydraulic system of pulling the landing gear back up, and that's why you're experiencing that turbulence. Well, we were probably out 45 minutes or so. He said, well, we're going to have to turn around because we can't get this fixed. And time we got back to the base there, getting ready to land on the base there, we had to prepare for an emergency landing because he said that all the hydraulic pressure had drained out from the system, and if we didn't hit the runway straight on, there's no way to steer the plane.
Oh, man.
Luckily, we had a good pilot. And me and this one friend, we were kind of buddying up together and going home at the same time and stuff. And we were just like, God, I just want to get home. And they kept trying to get planes. I had a plane coming in that was going to pick us up, and it broke down in Greece. Finally, when it got there, it was broke down again, and then there was something about they had overbooked all the passengers on the plane, so we had to eliminate certain people couldn't go, so they were trying to make us make the decision who was going to stay and who was going. No one would say, I'm not staying. We're going home one way or the other. And eventually we finally got home. Got back home. It was time. We had a big snowstorm hit here when it was time to come back. I was supposed to fly out of here in Beckley, and they closed the airport down. So they said, well, you can still, because I had to go out into Philadelphia to fly back out to catch a military flight. And time I got back to in town, Beckley, from the airport or whatever, they told us there was a flight that was leaving out of Charleston going up there. So we hurried up and got down there, got on the flight, got up to Philadelphia. they had overbooked all the passengers, so every time me and my friend got up there or whatever, they turned us down. So we ended up staying another night in Philadelphia and just got tired of waiting and bought a commercial flight back to Turkey.
On your own dime?
On my own dime.
Oh, wow. How much did that cost?
Because the next flight was a week away and we had to be back. I think a one-way trip ticket at the time was like $500-600 maybe.
What year was that?
That was in, when did I come home? 93?
It was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And the military wouldn't reimburse you because
No,
of, even though you couldn't have been back for another week?
no.
Did you try?
Oh, I tried. We tried. Believe me, we tried.
I have a question to ask you about you coming home. So when you came home from Turkey, you've been gone for how long?
Let me see. My original length of the tour was for 15 months. That was halfway through, so about 7 months. I was over about 7 months.
So the various times when you came home to West Virginia, particularly that time, was a longer period. What were your welcome homes like? What did it feel like to get back to West Virginia?
It was just like normally coming home, you know, like what I did when I was at Langley or whatever. I mean, it was a little bit more welcoming. You know, they were glad to see me, glad I was all right and everything. But you know, that wore off about after the first hour. They're like, okay, now you need to go do this and do this.
Yeah. The honey-do list,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Uh-huh.
When you were overseas, I mean, did you think a lot about home? Did you talk about a lot about home?
Yeah. A lot of people get homesick, especially when they're that far away from home. You know, they don't have that option of, you know, driving home for the weekend or whatever. You know, you get a little homesick. To me, I just kept thinking of all the positive things of like, you know, next month I get to go here, and next month I get to go here, or whatever. You know, you just got to keep a positive frame of mind going. Because a lot of people can't handle being away from home a lot of times, especially for long periods of time, especially, you know, during deployments when you're at war or whatever. You know, it gets really rough on you.
What do you think the biggest consequences that you may have suffered from being abroad?
Just being away from the family. That's the hard
Just
part.
missing that time with
Yeah, yeah.
Now, do you have family yourself? Did you ever marry or
Never got married. You know,
ever come close?
came close a couple of times, but you know, too set in my ways now. Who knows? It still may happen one of these days.
Well, maybe. Is there anything else you'd like to add to the interview? Anything you want to the folks that are watching this interview?
Just that if you contemplate joining the military, think about making it a career. Just, you know, just don't go and do 4 years or 3 years or however long you sign up, because in the long run it pays off. You got a paycheck to look forward to. The aspects of, you know, serving your country and then just it's a great way of life.
So you definitely feel that if you're going to go 4, you might as well do 20?
Yeah. You have a lot of people that's like that just go in for the educational benefits. You know, they do their 4 years and come out and, you know, got their college paid for. But you know, you've done the 4 years. You know, what's another 16? Because I know people that did 16 years and got out. It's like, what's another 4 years?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Do you have anything else?
Not really. We just we really want to thank you for serving your country, and we want to thank you for doing this interview. And
Well, you're welcome.
you're a great guy, and we appreciate you being with us.
Glad I didn't screw up anything.
Oh, thank you, sir.